afternoon, and everywhere in between to everyone, depending on where you're coming in from. As we were so lovely introduced, we are Canada's Ocean Acidification Community of Practice, which is co-led by Helen Gurney-Smith and Brent Eltz, and I'm the coordinator. The Community of Practice is run through MEOPAR, which is one of the networks of centers of excellence, and MEOPAR is very based around marine resilience. And they tackle everything through 4 platforms: their research program, training program, networking and partnerships, and knowledge mobilization and communications. And that last point, knowledge mobilization and communications, is the umbrella under which the community practices fall under. The part of the communication of a COP, the goal is to bring together all these various stakeholder and rights holder groups to a common table to talk about common issues that they have and facilitate that knowledge flow between these groups. And so more specifically, the goals of the Ocean Acidification Community of Practice are to coordinate across all sectors, disciplines, and regions to share expertise, being more traditional scientific expertise, as well as things like traditional ecological knowledge, as well as data and creating that knowledge flow. We also identify pressing needs for ocean acidification research and knowledge, both technologically as well as looking for gaps in the data and where research needs to be done geographically as well. And we also, one of our big goals in the communication aspect is to create a collaborative and supportive environment for groups affected by ocean acidification. We don't limit our membership at all. Everybody is welcome. And if you're part of our membership, you do have opportunities to have your voice heard and your concerns heard. The way that we drive our community of practice is through our steering committee. And as you look over all these wonderful people who help guide the community's actions, you'll see that a lot of them are from many of the stakeholder and rights holder groups that are that are involved in OA. We have members that are representatives of chemical oceanographers, biological oceanographers, industry groups, indigenous communities, social scientists, policy. We also have a student representative to represent early career research. The activities of the OA Community of Practice are really the meat of what we do, and is what the steering committee guides us towards, and how we accomplish our goals. And one of the big goals is communication, as we said, and people consume information in very different ways. And because of that, we like to present our information in a couple of different ways, which is why that top point there, I'd like to highlight the map of Canada's OA resources, which is on our website. And it is an interactive map that has pins that represent different people, projects, resources, and species that are involved in OA that you can pan across and click and see what's going on where in Canada. The goals of this communication are to both increase awareness and engagement with regards to OA, and to build online resources for both the COVID world, so that's what we're focusing on right now, a lot of virtual things, and as we move into the future, perhaps we'll have some other opportunities to expand on these knowledge mobilization pathways. What we're doing right now to facilitate this communication is we have things like blog posts, which you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, which give our members a platform on which to have their voices heard, as well as distributing it through our OA network, so that across Canada, these projects and opinions and major researchers are known. We also have discussion posts, which just recently moved to Twitter, which engage the community in conversations about both the community itself and other OA issues. And these are open discussions to anyone on who follows us on Twitter. So questions can be asked and answered by our members as well as ourselves on the management team of the OA community of practice. We create and share website resources that are free to anyone who visits the website. I'll give an example of one of these later on. And we're also focusing right now on increasing our social media presence to cast as wide of a net as possible to try and make sure that everyone who should be heard has the opportunity to voice themselves within our community. If you think that you would be a good fit for one of our blog series, or if you have any questions or ideas that you'd like us to hear about, there's my email there, coordinator@oceanacidification.ca. With my next point, adaptation planning and knowledge sharing is what we do with a lot of our bigger activities, and is focusing on these two things. I'm going to have a couple of quick examples and then two larger examples of some projects that we just finished and one of our ongoing projects that exemplify both of these aspects. So first thing I want to talk about is the State of Canada's OA Knowledge white paper, which is a paper that we're putting together about the state of knowledge of ocean acidification across Canada. And the goal of this paper is to identify the knowledge gaps that we mentioned in our goals section and figure out where we are, Canadian OA, and what needs to be done and guide ocean acidification research into the future in the direction that it needs to go, where it will be the most beneficial to Canada as a whole. We've also developed virtual educational resources. One that I'd like to highlight, which is one of the website resources, is we developed an OA action plan for building document for the general public. We released this on Ocean Acidification Day, which is January 8th. And the goal of that was to teach people about the policy side of OA, which is sometimes a bit of a mystery. And it encourages people who use this document to go and build their own community's OA action plan and learn how that process is developed. We also offer workshops and webinars on our website, which are archived there and are free for anyone to use. So that way presentations don't slip through the cracks. If you miss one, you can always have that knowledge there for as long as our website exists. We are currently working on diversifying our membership as well, which is part of our increased social media initiative. As right now, admittedly, we are a little bit more scientist heavy, and we want to make sure that all the stakeholders and right holders possible can voice their opinions and are heard. So we're currently in the process of doing some direct and indirect outreach towards some of these stakeholder and right holder groups that we are a little bit lighter on. And finally, for the more direct facilitation of OA-related projects, I'm going to move on to my next two slides where I have my specific examples. So the first one, which relates directly to the adaptation planning section of those focuses, is the BC OAH Action Plan Workshop Series. And this workshop series, its goal was to inform and make recommendations to the future BC OAH Action Plan. And the way this workshop went about making those recommendations was first by setting its goals, which were to determine the state of knowledge related to OAH in BC, develop long-term goals for addressing the knowledge gaps that are identified over the course of that workshop, and to develop adaptation and mitigation strategies to support the BC stakes and rights holders. The way that the workshop approached handling these goals was through a series of 4 workshops, each of which built off the previous one. So starting with the state of the science, which then led to the industry perspectives, or the harvester and producer perspectives, which built to the coastal communities, which involved community members and coastal communities, as well as Indigenous groups. And then the final workshop was a closed workshop that involved policy members, which looked at the previous 3 workshops through a policy lens. The OACOP's position and what we did with these workshops is we were part of, first of all, the note-taking team, and secondly, we produced workshop reports for each of these 4 workshops, which will help inform the steering committee, which is different than our steering committee, on the final recommendations and report. Currently, because if you look at the final workshop date, it was March 22nd, so nothing official has been released yet, but the initial action plan strategy report is expected to be released later this year. If you're interested about the BC OAH Action Plan Workshop Series, they have all of the slides from these workshops posted on the Quadra Center website. After my presentation, I can drop that link into the chat. The other project I'd like to highlight is more specific to the OA knowledge and all OA knowledge sharing, and that's our Oceanographic sensor project, which is ongoing. The goals of this project are to facilitate increased coastal OA observation data for the producers of aquatic food production, so these key regions that are really important either economically or culturally for food production, and to create knowledge transfer between the partners and the collaborators within the project. And the way that we're going to go about this is determining the efficiency and suitability of different sensor packages for different user groups. So we're essentially going to be deploying sensor packages and trying to figure out which are the most relevant to each of the collaborators and at what cost. And hopefully, if we can find the sensor packages that are most relevant with the best cost, that would increase the use of coastal observation data in the user group decision making, which would make for more well-informed decisions on what is going on in the ocean. This project is partnered with North Island College, which is in BC, and it's also in collaboration with industry and Indigenous groups where we're deploying these sensor packages and what they're looking for data-wise coming from them. Our direct roles in this project are to provide expertise and advice and analysis from both our leadership team as well as our wider OA network across Canada. And we will also be directly facilitating certain fieldwork activities. This penultimate slide I have put in here to show that we are a network within Canada, but there's many networks both globally and also nationally that work alongside and with us. So starting with the OACOP, we are a network of 151 active members, and we have linkages to these groups such as the OA Information Exchange, or the OAIE, which is a media sharing platform that is specifically ocean acidification focused. So if you're interested in a place where your entire feed will be ocean acidification related, it's a wonderful media platform, and we at the OACOP are team leads for Team Canada. And if you're interested, please join. We accept anyone with an interest in Canadian ocean acidification. You don't have to be necessarily working on ocean acidification in Canada. There's also the International Alliance to Combat OA, or more simply, the OA Alliance, and they specialize in policy and working alongside governments to develop policy actions and decisions that will benefit OA research as well as mitigation strategies. There's the GOON, or Global Ocean Acidification Observation Network, North American Regional Hub, which we have helped to inform on Canadian activities during the previous meeting of the hub. And that then goes on to the global network as a whole. The DFO-NOAA Joint OA Working Group is another one of these international collaborative groups that shares projects and information that are going on in both the USA and Canada. And these type of collaborations are very important because the ocean doesn't care about international boundaries, and we share both coastline and ocean with the US. There's also CEIVS, the Canadian integrated ocean observing system who has incorporated OA into their system, and we have made recommendations with them in the past on how to most effectively incorporate that. And finally, if you're interested in our OA network, there's a broader MEOPAR network with other communities of practice out there. Some deal with coastal vulnerability. And if we are a good fit for your research, I would encourage you to take a look at some of the other communities of practice, because a more well-connected network will always help develop science and communication as a whole. I'm going to leave off with this slide, which is our website up there, oceanacidification.ca, and I would encourage anyone who has been interested in this talk to join our mailing list, and you can do that by filling out a membership form. There's a direct link, but you can also find it fairly easily if you go to our website. If you join Team Canada on the OA Information Exchange, you will also hear a lot of our updates, and there's all of our social media, and once again, my email if anyone would like to reach out to me. Thank you all so much for listening, and we can jump into the discussion now.